Yes.
Speaking of drawing parallels between this experience and the PhD defense, I'd like to point our viewers to a very interesting article that you wrote, describing exactly what happened and how it contributed to your personality and your professional experience. I think it's extremely apt, and I would definitely recommend uh, people to give it a read. I'd like to move on to your passion project now, Free the PhD. Tell us a little bit about Free the PhD, why that particular name, when did you decide to, get on board with the project, who do you aim to help, and what exactly is it that you do?
All right. Well, that's a lot of questions, but I think they all tie into each other, right? So
That was the hope, yes.
yeah. So basically, once I left academia and I got my job at the startup, there was, there's like part of you that's like, oh, I'm done with academia. Like, we can just move on with life, which is totally fine, right? Lots of people will do that. But another part of me, I think, has always been someone who likes to build a community, who likes to give back, who wanted some sort of mentorship opportunity in the future to share the learnings that
Mm,
myself and every other person who leaves academia will gain as they move on in their career. So, a lot of universities are doing a great job these days. They've really invested a lot more in career training, but I think there's always more to contribute. So I was thinking, all right, well, I'm not part of a university anymore, so I don't really have access to the next generation of students from my cohort
mhm.
and from my university. But I bet there are people out there who are still looking for feedback and guidance, even if they do have resources kind of at home. So I was like, all right, well, why don't I start off by just providing like resume edits and helping people with job applications, because I've been through this. I successfully landed a job offer. I can give someone some advice. And so I actually started off doing some just simple document editing and found that I really don't enjoy that. It's very repetitive. And I also feel like the most important part for me is I would like the other person to learn why I'm making the changes for their benefit, right? Because at the end of the day, you can help someone edit their documents. You can't help them pass the interview, right?
Mhm.
So it's really important to me, if I'm going to spend the time with someone, I want them to understand the logic behind the edits, because this is how we shift our mindset from just academia to that of a professional, right? Who can really speak and advocate for themselves. That's the part that I think is really challenging if you haven't worked outside of academia. So basically, I went from doing document edits to starting to actually write down all of the common repeated questions I kept getting and the things I kept having to repeat to other people. So I turned that into a course. So now it's kind of evolved this project into a digital course where I could include information that people can use to help themselves. And then I can also give them feedback. So that kind of that was sort of my first launch of the idea of Free the PhD. So like, a resource that people can use. I chose the name after quite some thinking. Like it took a while to come up with the name, even though it's very simple. Um, I think I wanted to embody two things. I wanted to embody the mission, of course, of what we're doing, which is we want to get more people out into the world doing what they want to do, right? I think a lot of academics feel pressure that, okay, if you're not going to be a professor, you need to be this, or this, right? Only these things are okay, or like only these
Mhm.
things are somehow prestigious enough or, fitting for someone with a PhD. And I think all of that limitation is actually very harmful because not every person is the same, right? So when I was in graduate school and trying to figure out what options there were, I think I knew about consulting. Um, I knew a little bit about data science and I knew about science communication. I think those are like the three things that I knew about. And the problem is I applied to all of these in a very scattered manner and I didn't get any of them, of course, because I wasn't focused on any one of those. So I wanted the name of our passion project to represent the fact that you are free to do whatever you want, right, with a PhD. You shouldn't feel like this degree limits you to only, 2 or 3 approved paths. I mean, that's just as limiting as like all PhDs need to be a professor. So, there are PhDs doing everything, so many different important things in society. And I think at the end of the day, we are bringing that training with us to whatever we do next. We're making it better. We're making it more data-driven. We're making it more rigorous. That's what you should be proud of, carrying those letters after your name, right? So that's the kind of the first thing that I want to embody in the title of Free the PhD. And the other one actually goes back to that mindset that I mentioned, when so many PhDs are actually very good fits for many jobs. But when we present ourselves, we don't do that good of a job of presenting ourselves as appropriately as we could. And a lot of that is simply due to mindset. Like, we still talk about things as if we're an academic. We still frame things in an academic manner. And I really wanted what we do to free the mental limitations of PhDs, right? So it's sort of both an external freedom to go out into whatever career path, and it's also an internal freedom, right? To not limit yourself and say, oh my gosh, like, did I get a PhD to be a salesperson? Like, how shameful. That's a terrible thing to think, because it's not something you should be thinking. It could be things that people in academia think, but once you leave academia, the world is very different outside, and people have a very different view of what is valuable and how you can contribute, what you bring to the table. So that's kind of where the title comes from. So basically today it's evolved from, again, just doing application editing to kind of an online course that really steps through all the different components of like looking for a job, figuring out if it's a good fit, preparing yourself and your mindset to really understand your audience. Because at the end of the day, just like the pageant, just like your defense, just like an interview, you have to know your audience and you have to understand what they care about in order to win them over, right? So we sometimes need some guidance in doing that. And today, Free the PhD is an online community. So we have that kind of emotional and psychological support. We host the online courses there under a affordable monthly subscription for people who want more of that one-on-one feedback. So basically, if people feel like they want guidance, they can do it. Everyone can do it on their own. But if they want sort of a streamlined protocol, they can go through our courses and at each step of the way, get personalized feedback on their circumstances, on their applications. This makes it easier for those of us who serve as advisors at Free the PhD to help more people. Because as you can imagine, it's very hard for people with full-time day jobs to assist, many people, every step of the way. And the thing is, most PhDs don't need that much hand-holding. They just need the information to try it, and then usually just to check back and say, hey, what do you think? Or, what should I change? And that kind of feedback and system is what we found to work really well.
Absolutely. I mean, I can confirm, being a part of Free the PhD, that the atmosphere is really very supportive and very vibrant. And I think really sort of ties into the point you mentioned about helping people shift their mindset. I think the social support that Free the PhD offers is absolutely great. So, yeah. So let's move on to the next question. Chetna?
We cannot get to any conversation these days without talking about the pandemic. So the next question is, how do you think the present pandemic has influenced career transitions from academia? And how do you think we students can up our game?
Yeah, it's a tough time. Hopefully everyone listening is able to manage the stress and the, just the challenges that it's brought to everyone. I think as far as how it's influenced career transitions, clearly it has definitely impacted, especially public universities. They're not bringing in as much revenue because students are often not going in. So when the budgets are low, the hiring pool becomes smaller naturally. So I think it's pretty clear from these last 6+ months that a lot of people who had their plan A to apply for faculty positions are going to have to really seriously consider a real plan B, right? Not just like if I think a lot of, especially those of us who have a pretty good shot at a faculty position, you'll be like, okay, well, first I'll go on the faculty path. I'll, submit this grant, see if the paper gets accepted, and then I'll decide what I want to do next, right? And then I'll plan a plan B. I think that's not a good way to go about making sure you have, less stress in your life during the pandemic. So right now, I think there's a lot more competition for the few faculty positions that there are left. And then for everyone who hasn't been preparing a plan B, it takes some time, right? I think Parmeet can probably talk to that, but it's not like, okay, if I decide today I'm going to try for a non-academic job, that I can immediately start applying for jobs and be effective, right? Because you really have to understand what's out there, what's a good fit, right? What you might be more qualified for, so you have the best shot at getting the job offer. So all that takes time. And I think what people really need to do is be realistic, right? Look at your job market in your field, at the places you want to go, right? That's the other thing. There's a lot of maybe cities or towns that have faculty openings, but maybe you don't want to go there, right? Maybe your family's not there. Maybe you don't want to live in that place. So don't deny yourself the kind of lifestyle that's important for you, right? I think there's a lot of people who, that's part of the culture. You sacrifice everything for the science. But I think it's also important not to let that go too far, right? You have to take care of yourself too, especially nowadays. So I think students, postdocs really need to be honest with themselves and see, like, how likely is it with my track record, my publications in my field, am I going to be successful at getting a faculty position? If I'm not, where am I going to go, right? And you had to start defining that and figuring out, what kind of job do I want? What kind of impact do I want to make? And, what are my options? What are my networks? Have I talked to people? Most people haven't. So it's really important to be prepared.
Absolutely. Let's talk about hindsight a little bit. Of course, now you know the importance of networking, the importance of going all in if you actually want to transition out of academia. But what would you tell your graduate self now with the knowledge that you've gained? And closely related to that, what would you tell fellow PhDs who are struggling to find themselves, who are looking to sort of figure out what they want, and also with specific mention to those PhDs who actually know that they want to transition to industry?
Okay, hindsight's 2020, right? I would actually tell myself, keep doing what you're doing. So in graduate school, I did a lot of stuff outside of research. So I was teaching, I was actually tutoring Chinese on the weekend. I was part of our graduate student council, so I led a lot of community events. I was a master of ceremonies for local cultural events, so like Chinese student galas and like New Year's festivals. Nothing to do with science, but I can tell you that definitely helped my pageant situation, right? To get in front of a stage and like talk to people again. And, I was doing writing, I was doing freelance writing. All of these things I felt a little bit guilty about doing when I was a graduate student, but I still graduated, I still did my science, and I got really valuable work experience, right? That's something most of us aren't told, but it's true. So if you've been freelance writing for a publication like yours, for example, for 2 or 3 years, that's 2 or 3 years of relevant work experience for a writing heavy position you can put and should put on your resume. If you don't give yourself that opportunity while you're in training, you have to catch up with everyone else who already did that, right? So don't put yourself at a disadvantage if you have that time. So keep doing what you're doing is what I would have told myself. And then for fellow PhDs out there struggling to find themselves, just give yourself permission to explore. I think a lot of us don't. We don't feel like we have permission from the system, from our bosses. And at the end of the day, it's your life, it's your career, right? You have to live it. So if you're not sure about where you're going, it is your responsibility to look into it. And you might be really surprised at what you find. That's the other thing. Take risks, do things you think are like not worthy of a PhD, whatever that means, because you never know, it might be the perfect fit for you. And then with your PhD, you are going to make it the job that you want, right? So we have to go out there and make our own destinies, right? We can't wait for people to make it for us.
That's an excellent message. So thank you once again, Vania, for sharing so much valuable information with us. We've reached the end of the interview. These are the questions that I had. I would strongly encourage our viewers to check out Free the PhD, check out Vania's profile. She's amazing, and Free the PhD is an amazing platform. If you'd like to quickly shout out to our viewers what kind of subscription options you have, how they can interact with the platform before we go, would you like to do that?
Sure. I mean, first of all, thanks for having me again. Highly encourage people to, for example, see if you can write for, Amicable Scientists. Like it's important that you put yourself out there and you get practice doing things like writing. Like I think a lot of us assume like, oh, we'll be good at it, but that's not true, right? Different kinds of writing require different kinds of skill sets and experience. So, you guys should be getting in touch with like Chedna and Promit to make sure if you're interested in a writing career, or you're not sure if you want to do a writing career, you guys should be contributing to, articles and platforms like theirs to make sure that you have a portfolio you're writing, right? You have bylines, you have something to show off when you're interviewing. So first of all, I want to make sure people do that. And then second of all, if people are interested in Free the PhD, we have a free kind of community forum. So all you have to do is kind of apply, and we just make sure through the application that you are actually an academic. We want it to be a safe space for PhDs and postdocs, so we don't typically allow other people in, just so that people feel safe talking about the things that they want to talk about. But yeah, so there's a free forum that people can ask questions. We also have a free seminar series where we interview and record conversations with different PhDs and different career paths. That's all openly available without any type of subscription. And then if people want more, again, that personalized feedback, right? You're like, okay, I'm ready to get on the job market and I want to move myself forward with like confidence, and not just spend all your time Googling things and trying to put things together. That's basically when you can subscribe. It's a monthly subscription fee. You can check it out on the platform. And then you basically get access to a 3-part digital course and personalized chat feedback. So that could be on anything from, let's say, a networking message. You're like, I don't know what to say. So we might be able to help you, modify your LinkedIn message to make sure you have a good chance of getting a reply back. Or it could be, say, for your resume, if you're like, all right, well, I followed the template, I looked at the course, could you give me some feedback? And then we'll give you feedback. So it's a very interactive system, and we really expect everyone to do their part, right? Because at the end of the day, each person needs to be ready to shift their own mindset to be successful. So that's how Free the PhD works.
Perfect. Thank you. Good luck with the project.
Thanks.
I hope to see it scale great heights. And thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us today. It was a pleasure having you. And thank you very much once again.
Awesome. It was really, really great to be here. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.